What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest is a hospitality professional who creates distinct projects that make emotional connections with guests. She connects people from different regions and cultures to build new and inspiring luxury projects. She has over 20 years of global experience in hospitality design. She's the Senior Director of Design and Construction Services at Kempinski, based in Dubai. Ladies and gentlemen, Vibha Sawhney. Welcome, Vibha.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so wonderful to have you here from halfway around the world. I know it's a little late for you, but I think I always like in the beginning of these to let everyone know what's most exciting or really like lights me up about the guests that I have on. And I've been doing this podcast. I think it'll be about 3 years in August, and it's amazing to me how much it grows because like we're in a very niche world of hospitality design, hotels, entrepreneurship. Um, but it just amazes me how it's been resonating and growing over the years. Um, and and just by word of mouth, and to find you and be introduced to you by a former guest, Kristen Conry, who I guess you guys worked at Hyatt together.
Yes, we
Is
did.
that correct? So it's
Yes, yes, yes.
again, it's like one of those word of mouth connections that um, I get new people listening to this all the time. I meet new amazing guests from here. And it's almost like this flywheel of just amazing people and inspiration and being able to share other people's stories from around the world to shorten other people's journeys or give them experience. So I'm just super grateful to all of the listeners. Additionally, to Kristen for introducing us and also for you for being here from Dubai. So thank you, Vibha. Thank you.
The pleasure is all mine, Dan. Thank you so much. I'm also quite grateful to Kristen for being not just my mentor at that particular time in Hyatt, but for being such a good friend and being in touch all over these years. Um, so I'm very happy that you made the introduction to you and that we're here today talking. It's always
And
nice to meet new people and learn.
yes, and additionally, as far as in the world or realm of hospitality, there's always a spectrum from select service experience to luxury, ultra luxury, and it's just so nice to be able to speak to people from the entire spectrum. And you and Kempinski coming from the luxury side, and I'm sure I don't want to influence the conversation at all, but I'm sure that will color a lot of kind of what we talk about and what makes you and Kempinski um, special and unique within our universe of hospitality. But before we get into that, I just wanted to ask you, Vibha, like, what does hospitality mean to you? What does it mean to you, and what's keeping you in it and keeping you inspired to do amazing things?
Thank you, Dan. It's a very thought provoking question, I must admit. So, hospitality, in my eyes, is the highest level of service that one can provide, um, and this is where guest is considered supreme. And as an architect, for me, design and architecture are really tools that are used to craft memories for our guests, memorable memories, comfortable memories, where guest is really considered supreme. That's what it means to me.
And actually, it's interesting. So you're originally from India, correct?
I am. I am an Indian. Yes.
And I had another guest on previously, also from India, and he had a similar that idea of guest in being supreme, and I think he said guest is God. But how is that for you to say guest is supreme, I'd love to unpack that and learn more about what that
Mhm.
means. But is that, do you think that that's from your background or your heritage or growing up in India?
Dan, absolutely. Um, it's rooted in our culture. There is a saying that says "Atiti Deva Bhava," which means guest is God. And we live in our houses amongst our families and friends, this phrase. So, if there's food cooked at home and an invited guest arrives at home, he will be fed before we are fed. It's a
Hmm.
simple rule of the house. So I've grown up seeing that. I have grown up seeing my parents being so hospitable, welcoming people into the house, invited, uninvited, considering them as family and making sure they're really kept comfortable. So I think you're absolutely right that this is deeply ingrained in our culture, in our roots, and and this is where we come from. And it shows somewhere. And I'm glad that I have a service to offer in what I do, and that links back to my roots.
Mm. Um, can you say the saying again? Atiti? Atiti?
Atiti. I may not say
Atiti?
it correctly. My pronunciation may not be absolutely right,
That's
but
okay. I butchered your name too, so I apologize.
no problem. Atiti Deva Bhava. Atiti is guest, and Deva is God, and Bhava is godlike. I may not be able.
Ah.
I may not be translating it absolutely correctly as well, honestly, Dan. But that's what it
That's quite all right. I get the
means.
point. The reason why I was asking is I did this really cool retreat many moons ago called the Hoffman process. And one of my fellow people on this retreat was, her name was Atiti. And I'm wondering, that would mean guest, yeah?
Yeah, never
Okay.
been
I'm going to
guessed.
follow up with her. It's a good reason to reconnect. So I know that you just said that this ignited a passion with you, and it's the service or the vocation that you're doing. But really, I think it's the what I'm picking up from you is it's your passion, right? To be able to be an architect, to create these spaces, to create the connection and foster the connection of people. Um, on your journey, how did you know that this vocation also aligned with your passion? When you started off in architecture, did you see yourself doing hotels, or did you see yourself doing something else, and then you tried many things and then found your way into hotels? How did you find that passion, that intersection of your passion and your purpose?
Right. Um, it's interesting that you asked that, because I will give you a non-stereotypical answer. I did not know that this was my passion until I was in it. So I think what I really did follow was my inner calling, and I just made choices that led me to work on hotels, and I finally realized that it links back to what I want to. Uh, it links back to my purest self, and what I want to continue to do as service. Um, I chose architecture because it offered the best combination of subjects. I was interested in art, I was interested in math, I was interested in science. It seemed to be the best combination of subjects. Um, I went on to do interior design because I wanted to see results in shorter timelines. So it's very strange the way that I've made choices, I'll be honest with you. Um, but there's beauty in honesty. I believe so.
So
And
I'm actually
yeah,
very intrigued by that because there's many, I have a lot of architects, a lot of designers, a lot of designers who become architects, architects who become designers. And it's interesting. I think that was the first time that I've heard someone say it was almost the timing or the bringing of a project to market, that speed to opening is what drew you or kept you into interior design.
yeah,
Tell us
it's
more about that.
actually
Like,
true.
how did you how did
How did I
you
move
or
into
when
it?
did you figure that out versus working on a longer term architectural project?
Yes, sure. So soon after architecture school, I started working with a famous architect in Delhi, and we were working on the metro projects, metro stations of Delhi, along with some office buildings. And I was there for 2 years, and I realized I'm never going to see the end product. It will take, maybe 5 years, a decade to see the end product. And consider it the time of my life. I was in my 20s, fresh out of college. I was impatient to see the result of my creativity or where I was being involved in. And two, I have the tendency to be very detailed and to really be very meticulous and absolutely very detailed. And and I felt the need to go into the finest details of a project. I would kept zooming in. Let's put it like that. And then there just came an opportunity where um, a retail interior manufacturing firm was looking at some professionals joining their team, so they would be able to design and not just borrow designs and manufacture and create spaces, but be able to originally design as well. And I thought this was a great opportunity.
Just so
Yeah,
I'm clear, the retail manufacturer, it would have been store fixtures or
yeah,
some kind of luxury higher end like
yeah,
racks and
yeah,
displays and okay, got
exactly.
it.
And they had their own factories and they had their own workshops. So I was just very, I was very intrigued by learning on the ground, and which is why I chose to join them. With really sitting with carpenters, sitting with metal workers, sitting with forgers, understanding how these materials work, and then being able to see how all of it comes together. And I mean, and retail is the other spectrum of short timelines, right? I mean, it's they design today and it's built yesterday, so it's really fast. It's a different spectrum altogether. Um, and then I stuck to that for some time, and then I got married. We moved to Dubai. The first job opportunity that I got was commercial interiors, and I really enjoyed myself there. It led on to residential interiors, a bit of commercial interiors. And when the first hospitality project started coming into that company, um, I think because I was sensitive or very detail oriented, those were given to me. And that led on to hospitality. I moved on from there. I took a break when my son was born. I was looking for part time work at that time. The only company that was ready to offer part time work in Dubai was this hospitality design firm where a friend of mine was working. And so I started working there. And it just so happened that I continued working there full time, and I was designing hotels for Hyatt with the firm, really enjoyed myself, realized
Which firm was that?
it was called Samuel Creations. And yeah, so, but I was there. Hyatt was looking at expansion. And that's when they approached me to join the team. And, so one thing led to the other. So what I'm trying to get at is I must admit that, you know, um, these are just choices that have come my way and I've made them. They were really not driven by a vision that I had of where I want to be or what I want to do. Um, but I must also admit that being at Hyatt and being on the other side of the table, um, I realized that this is what I enjoy doing the most. And this is what relates deeply into what my beliefs are. I'm able to offer a service. I'm able to use the tools that I've learned along the way to create a better product, to create a better experience for for the guests, for the users of the space.
Hmm.
Um, yes. So, yep,
So
that's
I'm intrigued by a couple things, and especially like for the listeners who are early in their career or thinking about where they want to go. Like we all have choices. Um, architecture, interior design. you know, just for your decision tree. And what's interesting is when we go to work, oftentimes we're given a job to do, and we just have to do that job. We're not given a lot of leeway often
Yep.
to kind of say, "Oh, I don't like that one. I want to work on this one." Like you have the job, you got a job,
Yep.
you got to do it. But I'm
Yep.
also really intrigued by many guests that we have. Again, you're not alone in that this is you didn't know where your passion and purpose would intersect, but you were able to direct yourselves to the things within your vocation that interested you. So that's getting into the details and the meticulous
Yeah.
details and diving in. So from earlier in your career, how did you kind of direct your attention to that? How were you able to um, get the permission to be able to dive into what interested you?
I mean, look, I think it's a personality trait that when people around you are working with you, they just realize what you're into. Um, I mean, I remember as an intern architect, I was asked to do stone wall detailing, for example. And I remember spending days where somebody could have done it in half a day to do it, but I wanted to get it right. And I think people around you notice, and I'm just very grateful that I've always also had very good people around me who've who've encouraged me by dialogue, who've invigorated my sense of passion for creating beautiful spaces and I mean beautiful in terms of what is comfortable for people. And I really believe, and this is where everybody thinks that I have a minor OCD, but I really believe that if I have paid the attention to detail, it is going to, somehow the person using it is going to sense it eventually.
I think it's people would see the hierarchy of where you work. They saw you paying attention or spending all that time really working out the details on that stone wall project that you were designing. And that's actually super interesting because like you're very detailed, you're going there, but then I'm also intrigued because you mentioned sitting on the other side of the table. So where you are now from the
Yeah,
Hyatt, from the ownership slash brand side, or at
yeah,
Kempinski,
yeah,
my opinion of that is okay, you details are important in everything we do, but
yeah,
oftentimes at that higher level of
yeah.
brand or owner, oftentimes you don't have the ability to get into the details that much, or
No, you
you have to
don't.
pick and choose which ones. So
You
how
have
do
to pick
you
and choose.
yeah, how do you reconcile that? How do you at the higher level of brand, how do you still um, kind of feed that desire to dig into the details? Where are you focusing your attention when you're able to look at the details?
Yeah. It's a very good question. And I think choosing the right partners helps. So it's as if you're outsourcing the work to the right people who would also give the right attention to the project. And to the nature of going into so much detail and always thinking of the guest using the space is empathy, right? So I think
Mm,
collaborative empathy is super important. um, and as you go higher up in the career journey, um, you and especially as a global citizen, you have to empathize with different ideas of whether it's owners or architects or interior designers, and work collaboratively to tap the best, and work with the right partners, support the
mm,
owner's vision with the right partners who also believe in driving towards a great product. Um, that's the only way to do it.
mhm.
And personally, I mean, I think um, I do look into interior design detailing a bit more than most other operators of my um, of the same level. And I have been
Mhm.
told that by certain interior designers. We don't have
Stone
any
wall.
operating.
You're designing a
I'm
stone
looking
wall
at.
again.
I'm designing a stone wall again. So recently was at the launch of Marina Residences, which is designed by IDA. It's just recently launched, and the interior designer was there as well, and they're like, we really enjoy working with you, but we don't, because once we receive an email from you, we're worried about what it's going to be about. What have you caught this time?
Mm.
Um, yeah, but I think people do appreciate the attention, because it also comes out of, not it doesn't come out of ego. It comes out of working towards a good project. So it comes out of appreciation of the other person's ideas, and adding value to it based on our experience.
I want to dig in a little bit into this idea of choosing the right partners, because I think you just mentioned that IDA designed the Marina Base suites you mentioned, or Marina
Marina
Suites.
Bay, Marina Residences.
I'm sorry, Marina Residences.
Yeah.
Um, so that's as far as choosing the right partners who are actually executing the work. But when I think of Kempinski, the first thing that comes to my mind is luxury, right? And also, I think you may own a couple of the properties that um, in your portfolio, but really, from an international scale of luxury, you're partnering with ownership groups all over the globe, correct?
Yes.
So, how do you choose the right partners as a steward, ownership groups? Like, so as to make sure that those ownership groups are also going to, um, I don't know, just accept or be aligned with your stewardship of what that Kempinski luxury experience is, because I'm sure you must get a ton of inbounds from ownership groups saying, "Oh, I want to do a Kempinski," and in a certain light, you have to balance what their vision is, because if they're doing a luxury hotel, like, they're probably spending a ton of money or more than normal. They have their own vision, but how do you make sure that the Kempinski luxury vision and the ownership vision are aligned?
Yeah. Um, it's a better question for my development team to answer, to be honest,
Hmm.
because they're the ones who get approached for most of the leads.
Hmm.
Um, Nonetheless, um, you see the filtration. You do filter potential requests for projects based on location, owner profile, what they've built before, and of course understanding what their vision is. Um, but in terms of marrying owner's vision to what we want to create as Kempinski, what I would like to say is Kempinski is offering opulent luxury, but it can be classical, it can be contemporary, it can be in the city, it can be in the resort on the top of the hills or by the beach. Um, the location and the demographic um, makes a lot of difference on what the project needs to eventually achieve. What Kempinski is trying to make sure from a project and brand consistency is that the DNA is consistent in all these projects. And the DNA is impeccable service, it is the use of quality materials, it is the space that one is creating, the the brand touch points that come through in a space. It is all of that. Um, and our job is to make sure when we're liaising with the owner, we tie their vision and this together.
I mean, when I think of Kempinski, I think of luxury. That's the first thing that comes to the top of my mind. You own a couple of your hotels, but most of them are partnerships with other ownership groups internationally from, you know, you name the continent, except maybe Antarctica. You're not in Antarctica, correct?
Nope.
That's the only one you're not in. I think you're in every other continent. Is that safe to say?
Um, Pretty much. I mean, Kempinski is an 80 plus hotel company. It's not
Hmm.
as massive as the Marriotts and the Hyatts and the Hiltons. Um, so we're not everywhere. But yes, luxury in every different continent or every different country is interpreted differently. 100%.
Would it be would it be safe to say that of the 80 odd properties that you guys have in every continent except Antarctica, that you're in many different locations, many different cultures, but many different ownership groups, many different partnerships, but this idea of luxury or opulent luxury is somehow threaded throughout all of them. And there has to be a buy-in from all of your stakeholders to make sure that you're delivering on that Kempinski promise. So from a design perspective, with this global footprint that you have, how do you like how do you make sure that everyone is aligned and bought in, and that the from a design perspective that everyone is executing?
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, it's an internal joke in our department that our brand guidelines are very thin. But what that means is there are not many rules set in stone. And we are really open to understand what the owner and the owner's team wants to do in a project. Um, what the constant DNA is the sense of space, the quality of materials, and the brand touch points. So, what is, say, very important to Kempinski in the public areas is an amazing lobby lounge experience, the lady in red, the concierge services, things, touch points that are able to provide a personalized service to the guest. I mean, it's all about the service you provide to the guest coming to your property, right?
Hmm.
And that thread needs to be present in all our properties. The second most important thing for Kempinski would be serving breakfast properly. Again, that thread is very important to be present in all properties. And then when you go to the rooms, I mean, to be honest, we're doing many apartments, many residences now as well. And in fact, most of my projects currently are residences where the hotel experience can be brought through. So I can say very confidently that once you enter the hotel guest room and the hotel apartment, it is about, or a residence, it's again about making sure you have a comfortable place to live, right? To really live. If it's an apartment, a comfortable living space, dining space, kitchen space, a luxurious bathroom, have having the option to shower or take a tub bath. Um, if it's a hotel room, a very comfortable bed, a place to work, a place to lounge, and of course, a great bathroom experience. Um, it is a fact that if you go down in the size of the room, you may not be able to give all the touch points that we need to provide. Having said that, if you're building a property in New York or London or Paris, you may not be able to achieve the kind of space that you can achieve in Middle East or Africa. Um, and then and and then the DNA is made consistent by how well those spaces are articulated to provide all those touch points, how well the materials are played with, to make the volume appear larger than it is. And that's where the sensitivity and partnership of the right designer is critical for the project. Um, I would say, for example, so this is in terms of planning. And in terms of design aesthetics, it's completely driven by the location, by what the owner wants to provide in that space. So we don't dictate the colors, we don't dictate a theme. It is really dependent on the owner's vision of what he wants to create for that property. I mean, you look at properties and how varied they are. If you see the one in Turkey, the Çırağan Palace, it's an Ottoman imperial palace, which is now being renovated. It's been with Kempinski. It's a landmark property for us. It's been with Kempinski for many years. I'm yet to visit that property. Nonetheless, it's beautiful, and it may not be to my taste, but it is to the owner's taste. It is
Mm,
so opulent. It is with details of the Ottoman Empire and the Turkish culture embedded into that property in every corner, in every space. And this is just by seeing pictures that I've seen. I mean, I've been with Kempinski for just a year. I haven't been to all the properties as yet, but it's absolutely stunning. And and in contrast, if you look at the property in Engelberg, which is a ski resort, it's a very small property. But if you just look at the rooms, it is completely different from what we've achieved at in Istanbul. It's completely different. It's minimalistic. It's got attention to detail. It is simple. It's got the best leathers and the best materials in play with each other. It 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 really encourages you to look outside and see the Alps and realize where you are located.
mm,
Um, we're doing the Kempinski residences in Dubai, which is for Swiss Property Group, and I mean, I've never met an owner that is so involved in a project. He he takes his project as his personal house, and he keeps telling me, even if I may just have one residence, but I want to make sure the comfort that I have in my residence is provided to every resident in my building. And it's amazing. He doesn't need to do it, but it's that mentality and that cooperation that is in sync with what we want to achieve.
mm,
And it's going to be a beautiful project. We're just waiting for it to open next year. A stunning location, very modern architecture, very modern interior design. Um, Absolutely stunning. So, I mean, these are just a few examples of how varied projects can be aesthetically,
mm,
depending on owners' visions, and how you can see, the main brand experience that one expects when you go to Kempinski prevalent in whether it's a residence or a hotel, and it's prevalent all across. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I spoke too much.
that's wonderful to hear. And then no, it's great. No, I love it. And then so you're catering to every group, every location, but I'm also intrigued. What's the Kempinski way to serve breakfast?
What is the Kempinski way to serve breakfast? A large breakfast buffet. It's the
Yes.
German way of serving breakfast. So breakfast buffet and a large
And
spread.
how does the Kempinski breakfast buffet differ from other buffets that are out there?
I think the quality of food is never compromised.
Mhm,
The array of display is never compromised. Um, and I if I compare it with maybe a Park Hyatt or a Mandarin or a Four Seasons, I would say they might all be at par with how breakfast is served. Um, but what I'm trying to imply here is food is very important to Kempinski. I mean, it is a German brand, and it's just the German breakfast is very important. And we will never compromise in, if compromises are to be made to a project, we will never compromise in not giving the correct breakfast experience to the
mm.
guest.
Well, I love that. One other thing I wanted to dig into that you
Hmm.
mentioned earlier with this idea of collaborative empathy. How, what is collaborative empathy mean to you? Because I think so much of hospitality is meeting others where they are. And in order to do that effectively, you have to have empathy is at the you have to score high on the spectrum of empathy in order to do that. That's that some people call it the hospitality gene or the hospitality quotient. I think Danny Meyer refers to it as. But when you mentioned it earlier, I got the feeling that there was almost a process or a system around how to, based on who your guest is or who all the stakeholders are that are experiencing the Kempinski brand, how do you ascertain what that collaborative empathy is?
I believe hotels are a very large ecosystem, and for them to function well and hospitality service to be at its best for its guest, this ecosystem really needs to function well. It's it's so interdependent on various functions, you know. So you need the designer, you need the architect, you need the engineer, but you also need the finance, you also need the front office person, you also need the chef, you also need the housekeeper. It is it is an ecosystem which is where if one aspect does not work very well, it will it can start collapsing or it can start changing. And for any ecosystem to work very well, one has to collaborate in the best possible way. And in today's scenario, you know, we're already mixing so many ecosystems together with different nationalities, different cultures, different visions, different expectations. If one lacks empathy, we will not be able to collaborate effectively. And if you're not able to collaborate effectively without this essential link, we will not be able to give the right hospitality experience to our guest, and we will really be doing them a disservice. Um, I think that's what I meant when I said collaborative empathy. So it's not just internal, but it is with all the players in the project, internal and external.
I also think that even though you may have said, "Oh, that might be a better question for the development side," I think that really what that collaborative empathy is understanding who all of the stakeholders are in a project and what the location is and who the guests are and who the ownership group is and who the designers that and architects and all the consultants that you may have a hand in hiring or and coaching to the Kempinski level of opulent luxury, no matter where it is in the world, to be collaborative on on an empathetic level on such a grand international scale at such a high level is that's like it just seems very complicated to me and difficult to do, but it I think it's also the most critical thing that you can do because you can't leave any space or misunderstanding um, between all of the stakeholders and what you're trying to accomplish.
No, you're absolutely right. And this is where communication is key. This is where um, empathy is key and
Mm,
understanding. You know, and this is where, if you remember our past conversation, I mentioned Kempinski takes pride in saying that we don't have an ego, no ego
mm,
policy. And I think it is so amazing that, you know, what it entails is that we're not trying to enforce a brand. All that we're trying to do is understand, communicate, and try and work together on a project to make sure the DNA of the European luxury comes through. And I think when I joined Kempinski a year ago, and I think this stayed with me. This no ego has just stayed with me, and I realize it more and more working closely with my with my boss, with my other colleagues who've been with the company for a very long time, that their approach is really collaborative. It is not, you know, and I come from Hyatt, and we maybe work differently from the bigger Marriotts, etc. And we are slightly flexible. We were slightly flexible. I mean, with my time with Hyatt, but this is a different level. This is really where you're understanding what you want to achieve, but taking two steps back and really understanding what the owner wants to achieve, and then trying to marry it together. I don't know how to
Mm.
explain it better, but it's
No, I appreciate
different.
what you're saying because if I hear you, it's that idea of no ego is actually really interesting for a brand because a brand in the most general sense, and there's some people who are also argue that brand is dead. Right now it comes down to how do you find that deeper personal connection with your customers or guests, right? And it's not so much about the brand, which sometimes a brand um, can just be taking a subpar product and putting it through a brand machine to give it some standards or connection to other things in a brand portfolio. And I'm speaking more to product than I am to hospitality, but it's and to try and tap into the marketplace that way. But if you go with that idea, and I don't think brand is dead by any means, but I do think that like there's a spectrum. But if you go with that idea that brand is dead, you really have to connect with the stakeholders and the guests in particular, the customers, to have no ego and to really meet them where they are in whatever environment you're trying to do, in whatever kind of experience you're trying to convey without going through a branding machine, right? The Kempinski logo might be the same, but if I'm listening to you, I haven't been to the 80 properties. I think I've been to one, but it's really about differentiating and finding that connection for the people who are seeking out that level of opulent luxury, but not necessarily through a traditional idea of what a brand is, but more in an experience, an egoless experience.
You're absolutely right. It is, I mean, like I said earlier, it is the personalized experience that we want to be able to give the guest that walks into the property.
Mm,
And that is what we want to try and achieve. So it is the experience that we're targeting. It is the experience to its fullest, whether it is at a beach, whether it is at a ski resort, whether it is in the city. It is the experience that we want to achieve, which is consistent across these properties.
mm. But just to go back to that idea of brand is dead on one end of a spectrum, on
Yeah.
the other end of a spectrum, brand, if done well, unlocks and creates so much value as well, right? And that's like when you look at multiples and valuations of companies, a really, really strong brand that's executed really well, that adds tremendous market capitalization and value from a financial perspective if done well. So I think if I'm talking to you and thinking about this out loud, I just feel like there's a place for everyone. There's a place for every kind of experience, but ultimately, it's really about understanding who all the stakeholders are and meeting them where they are. Vibha, it's been really cool to hear about your experience and to where you are now at Kempinski. But as you look forward, being there a year, and you look at all the things that you've done and all the projects and the exciting opportunity that's out there in the future, what's exciting you the most as you look forward into the future?
I'm driven by what I do every single day. Um, and I want to keep doing exactly the same thing in the future as well. So I think when I'm not able to travel, and I'm going to be, when I'm not able to travel, I would still be working as a consultant perhaps, or I my dream is to eventually have my own cafe with a pottery studio at the back, where I'm creating my own ceramics and I'm able to offer a smile to somebody with a cup of coffee,
Mm,
and that's it. So that's old age for me, and I hope I can do that. But before that, while my limbs are moving, I really want to still continue to travel, explore different cultures, keep giving the service, keep working with amazing people to continue to give various people great experiences. I
Mm,
wouldn't change it at all. People ask me this so many times. Are you happy with what you're doing? I'm like, I love it. I can do this the entire day. I love it. I love what I do. I
mm.
wouldn't change it for anything.
Okay, 2 questions now. What type of ceramics do you like to work in? What medium within ceramics? Is it wheel or sculpture or
Wheel.
wheel? Okay. Um, and my second question is, what's your favorite kind of coffee?
It's a simple espresso. Actually, no, I would be lying. If I go to a coffee shop, I would have an espresso, especially from percentage Arabica. But at home, I like my local Indian filter coffee with a basic, metal filter container
Mm.
with a typical filter coffee from Tamil Nadu. That's what I like.
Ooh.
Until I have 3 cups in a day, it's not enough. Yeah.
Okay, I need to check out the Tamil Nadu filter coffee. All right, I'm writing that down because I need to put that on my list of coffee selections that I like. I love drip. I'm a drip coffee person myself, and I drink a lot of black drip coffee, and it just makes me very happy. And since moving from New York City to Connecticut, I found that there is no good coffee around, and it's very upsetting. So we have a little laboratory of coffee in our kitchen here.
Okay, interesting. I'd like to see that sometime.
Yeah, we got all different kind of coffee devices. Um, well, Vibha, this has been really wonderful. If people wanted to learn more about you or Kempinski, what's the best way for them to check in and learn more?
Yeah, so about Kempinski, I mean, they can just go to the website and they'll get all the information they want from that. If they want to connect with me, they can connect with me via the LinkedIn profile, and I'd be happy to respond to any query that they have.
Yeah. Okay,
Yep,
great. And we'll be sure to put that in the show notes as well. I just want to say thank you for you and staying up later, being halfway around the world in Dubai. And I am hopeful and optimistic that our paths will cross in our travels. So I will make a note and we will definitely connect in person. I'm really looking forward to
100%.
that. So thank
Same
you,
here.
Vibha. And also, I just want to
Thank you,
thank our
Dan.
listeners. Without all of you, we wouldn't be here talking to these amazing guests with all these different experiences from all over the world. And again, it's word of mouth. So thanks, Kristen. Thanks, all the guests. Please reach out if you want to hear something. Sign up for the newsletter. Respond to the newsletter. Give me some ideas. Always looking for content ideas. And just thank you. I appreciate everyone and have a wonderful, wonderful week.